What happens when you're in the middle of a project that you never had a chance to begin? This is a meditation on vocation in ministry today. Thanks for listening to me. When I was 14, in the middle of my first year in high school, I felt a calling to become a football hero. What I actually became was a retired clergy. But when I was 20, I felt a calling to travel the world, beginning in Australia. But I never got there. I think there are many moments and settings in life where you feel a call. And sometimes that call lands on your shoulder like a little bird, but just as quickly it flies away, disappears. Sometimes, though, a call arrives slowly, silently, like the rising tide. And then, in its time, you can feel it receding at the beckoning of the moon. Some of these callings might be called micro-callings because they summon you to do something right now, today. And some of these callings might be called meta-callings because they summon you to do something with your life. I think we fail to do justice to the mystery that we name call or vocation when we treat it as a singular event. Many callings in our life, yes. And what this means is that we have many beginnings in our ministry life. When I began in ministry, the church sent me to a village on the Gaspé coast with a calling inside me that was as light and as frail and as ephemeral as the breezes coming in off the Bay of Chaleur. I was certain of nothing, but I knew that I was willing to give it a try. I could always go and do something else if it didn't work out. The winds change, don't they? And so I began, a new minister, giving it a try. 25 years later, the years on the Gaspé coast and the years in Yellowknife and the years in Montreal behind me, I was sitting one day in a church office here, in this building at Fredericton. Everything around me screamed ordinary, average, typical, another day. And then it came. And it said, without words, "Okay, Peter, you're not giving it a try anymore. This is what you do now. This is who you are now." And so it settled, descended deeply inside me. You know you're a different person. You know you are a different minister when the calling arrives and kills off all your options. And so when I was 55, I began again, a new minister once more. 10 years later, I was retired. A man called me one morning. He asked to see me. I said, "Sure, come on over." So he came. We sat down at the kitchen table. I asked him, "How can I help you?" He said, "Our church is in trouble. It's 6 weeks before Christmas and 4 out of our 5 staff people have left without giving us notice. We need help. Now." In that moment, I knew, without thinking, without a sliver of confidence that I actually knew what to do, I knew somehow that I was the right person. I knew somehow that I was the right person to do this. And when you know you're the right person to do something, it changes everything. When a calling takes the fear out of not succeeding, when it takes your heart and turns it toward the work because somehow, win or lose, it's just not conceivable to say no. You begin again. And so at the kitchen table, I was a new minister once more. And now, 7 years later, I'm still struggling along the path. This time I'm filling in between ministers in this congregation that I belong to. I'm not sure if I feel it as a calling or not, but I know I hear an insistent voice saying to me, "You haven't got forever now, you know. No more bullshit." That too makes me a new minister, doesn't it? And I'm beginning again. And so a lifetime of beginning and beginning again. Did we expect a call to arrive fully hatched? The gospel for this Sunday, Advent 2, is Mark 1, 1-8. You're familiar with the opening sentence, simple one, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. I'll stop right there at Mark's first words, the beginning of the good news. Because I think that in ministry today, we are working at a project that in fact we never had a chance to begin. Think about it. This time last year, in the middle of Advent, you had no idea that a world pandemic was 2 months away from you. You didn't have a chance to make a plan. You never had a chance to prepare. Do you remember one day the universe unfolding as it should, or at least as we expected it to? The next day people are fighting over toilet paper in the grocery aisle, and they're stealing hand sanitizer from the hospital. And some experts, do you remember this, are telling us masks are essential. Other experts were telling us masks, indifferent work they do. And so we didn't really know what we were in. But then suddenly stores, churches, schools are closing. Travel is shut down, plans are in ruins, and we're doing ministry in the middle of it. We never had a chance to begin. When a storm is coming, there are signs in the sky. The barometer is falling. The chatty weather broadcasters telling you to make sure you've got batteries for your flashlight. When a baby's coming, we have 9 months to prepare, to be about the business of our primal nesting instinct, trying out the sound of possible names for this child, wondering who will this person be that's coming into the world, dreaming about the beginning of a life. You have time to prepare. When you're paddling a canoe down a winding river and you hear a distant roar around the next bend, you know there's dangerous water down there. And so what you do is you do an eddy turn, you get off the water, you walk down the shore beside the river until you can see the rapid, and you plan your route through the water. You never had a chance to plan. The pandemic is roaring. We found ourselves in the rapids before we had a chance to begin. Churches and ministers had to react quickly, faithfully, responsibly. And that's what you've done. And that's what we're still doing as the pandemic tightens its grip. You're adjusting to every new development in public health policy. You're adjusting to every new requirement in communications technology. We're forever catching up, improvising, keeping people safe, figuring out new ways to make our mission survive. What makes this so hard in ministry is that the soul doesn't react and pivot and change and adjust like our lives have to react and pivot and change and adjust. Your soul will not zig and zag and improvise and stick handle through the days. This is because the soul you have, the soul you are, it has to last you a lifetime. It has to see you through a lifetime of changes, losses, surprises, welcome surprises, unwelcome surprises. Your soul has to carry you through failure and sorrow and pain. The soul is why you have it in you to be struck dumb by beauty. It's the source of your tears that flow when the music carries you off. It's the soul that equips you to recognize exactly how tiny and frail is your life under a multitude of stars in the night sky. Your soul is what summons you back when you've wandered off into a far country. The soul is what you cannot get rid of. It's what you cannot escape, cannot eradicate. Because wherever you end up, even if you take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, there it will be. And there it will say, I've been waiting. I knew you would come. Meanwhile, like every minister, you are writing a gospel with your life. And if the good news no longer feels good at all, maybe this is a proper and perfect time to begin. It won't be your first time, and it won't be your last. Where do you go to begin at such a time as this? Perhaps there are clues in the beginnings of our Gospels. If you're like John, writing your Gospel, you go right back to the primal beginning. You remember how he wrote, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. Can you go back beneath time and space and circumstance to the single cell of what would one day become your life in ministry? In the beginning was the Word. This is where the introverts, the attic dwellers, love to go. Back to the unified field, to the deep source, the Anlage. Drink of the crystal water from the depths of the firstborn of creation, the Word. But if you're Matthew or Luke writing your gospel, you don't go inward, you go outward. You begin with your people. Matthew writes an account of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Long list of the forebears. Luke, for his part, begins with Elizabeth and Mary, the mothers of John and Jesus. Can you go back to those lives that have sparked the dream in you? The ones who gave you a name, nurtured your life, the grandmothers, the early teachers, the angels, someone who thought much of you when you thought so little of yourself, someone whose character said, come and see. This is where the people like to go when it's time to begin again. And if you're Mark, well, if you're Mark, and if your life is singing a gospel in Mark's key, you just roll up your sleeves and begin in the middle of everything. Remember his beginning? The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Here comes John the Baptist. Whoa, he's in your face out there in the God-forsaken wilderness. Let her rip. Let's go. Let's get started. See, many ways to begin. Good places to begin. It's not your fault that you never had a chance to begin. but there's always now. And now we must not be rendered small in spirit because of what we face. Anxious maybe, yeah. Lonely maybe, yes. Here we're confined to one household. Resentful maybe, I'd put that near the top of my list. But you have something deeper. You are something deeper. Something you can trust. If you're feeling like you're living on the skin of things, you can thank your soul for knowing what it's missing. You know, there's nothing to be done about fixing up the soul. It will avoid and resist all makeovers. It already is what it is. It is already in place. It will last you a lifetime. It's already your true self. It's there to give you a chance to live beneath the skin of things. That's the project now, to live, to do what is just, to love what is kind, to walk humbly with God. It's who you are. The pandemic is not who you are. The pandemic is not who you are. Your soul knows this. Amen.